My name is Barry. This is a question I'm directing at Sam and Matt because we've already got a pretty good sense of what Richard thinks of it from his book, Unweaving the Rainbow. The question is, do you feel that it is inevitable that the humanities will be hostile to the sciences? And if so, you might not agree with that, but if so, excuse me, if so, what can be done about it? Why and what can be done about it?
I don't necessarily think that there's any reason to suppose that there's a necessary hostility. I'd like to think that the more we understand the universe, the better information we have across the board, that this would improve both the sciences and the humanities.
Yeah, I mean, there's this famous notion of the two cultures that is, I think we're in the process of outgrowing. I think more and more a love of science. I mean, now I'm talking among well-educated people who are not being indoctrinated into one or another religious cult. But there's a love of science among people who are not themselves scientists is more and more contagious, and it's just a myth. I mean, I'm sure you can find some scientists who don't care about the rest of culture and would disparage the humanities, but for the most part, scientists they love art and music and fiction as much as anyone else. They just don't love intellectual pretension and scientific ignorance and the marriage of those two. So it's really what postmodernism did to our intellectual lives, where you had some part of every university committed to the idea that there's no such thing as truth.
Yeah.
And that drove a wedge, and I think we're still recovering from that. But there is no boundary between, I mean, it just comes down to not pretending to know things you don't know. So,
Amen.
You know, was Shakespeare Francis Bacon? Probably not, but I don't know, right? So it's not, why pretend to know for sure that he was Francis Bacon when the evidence is non-existent? That's a question of history. That's a question of, I guess, for scholars of literature. It's also a question of biology, really. You know, like which ape wrote those plays? So there is no real boundary between, in my view, between science and valid claims in the humanities and even journalism. I mean, we're just having a fact-based discussion about the world.
You know, and I'll kind of leverage this to go back and add an addendum to your response to Armin, where he had mentioned that, you know, why not go after God, because God is the biggest, most pervasive bad idea. I'm not sure that's the case. It may be that the most pervasive bad idea is that you are a reasonable judge of reality. That may be the foundational, you know, that we all assume that, oh, well, I wasn't fooled by this and I wasn't fooled by that, so I surely am not being fooled by this other thing, and yet we are. The second you think you're not being fooled, it's already too late.